Excuse me. Good morning, classes. I sure do miss being back in Roscommon, and I should be back next week, all of next week, and hopefully I don't bore you too much with my video lectures. I'm sorry that this is going to be our delivery method for the next class period or two. But prior to class, or at the beginning of class today, Mrs. Moy should have provided with you two or three handouts. Let me just quickly pull some of those up. The first one we're going to deal with is the lecture handout. So as I usually do, I'll have my lecture up on the screen, and you guys will just follow along. And so this one here is the one that you're going to see, and your copy will have some blanks in here. So most of you, this is not new to you. Just follow along. We're going to talk a little bit about a concept called elasticity today. And the other two handouts that you're going to need along the way is looks like this. The handout, the front sheet looks like this, but we're actually going to start on the back side of this, or page 2 of this one that says economics practice problems. We're going to start on the second page that starts with the words elasticity. And then the third one is going to be a short 2-page reading that's going to go with tomorrow's asynchronous assignment. So this one you'll just put away in your notes, and you'll be using it along with the videos that I provide you tomorrow, which will be basically a reinforcement of what we're going to be doing today. So let's go ahead and grab the PowerPoint slide notes, and we'll start off with this title slide here. So one of the things that I talk about at the beginning of economics class, the beginning of the semester, is that if you study economics in college, and I have had a few students go on and say, hey, I'm going to major in economics in college. I like the topic, or I enjoy what I've learned in economics, and they've gone on to study economics. It's at the college level, it's a lot more math. And today we're going to actually, and I know some of you are very math adverse. You don't like math, and but I will tell you that it's unavoidable. We do have a little bit, and this is going to be our one section of math that we're going to kind of get out of the way. It is what I would refer to, and don't take this the wrong way, I would refer to this as 4th grade math. And so this shouldn't be beyond the capabilities of everybody in class. If you are struggling or need a calculator, we have those obviously available in class. So just follow along. I'm going to, and again, don't take this the wrong way, I'm going to dumb it down a little bit. And so don't get too freaked out when you start to see this formula right here. So what is elasticity? Elasticity is the measure of responsiveness and the quantity demanded for a commodity as a result of a change in price of the same commodity. Wow, what does that mean? So simply put, if you change the price of a product from one time period to another, so let's say I'm charging $1 for a candy bar today, and I decide next week to change the price of that candy bar to $1.50. So I'm raising the price by 50%. So we know the law of demand says if you raise the price, you're going to lose some customers. The question that we ask is, how many customers are we going to lose? Are we going to lose a lot, or are we not going to lose very many? So if we lose a lot, we're going to use this term elastic, that these goods have elastic demand. If we change the price and we don't lose a lot of customers, then we're going to call that inelastic. Now, there's two ways that we can look at elasticity. One way is through using mathematics, and we're going to focus more on that tomorrow, next class period, maybe during the asynchronous time or maybe the next lecture. But the mathematics part, there's a formula here. Now, this formula looks pretty ugly. It looks daunting and scary for some. But it's simply a percent change in quantity demanded divided by the percent change in price, with the quantity demanded on top, percent change in price on the bottom. Those of you that are in science class, you might recognize the triangle delta. The symbol delta means change in. So change in, there are the words right there, change in. Change in quantity demanded. So this is the change in quantity demanded over the quantity demanded, change in price over the original price. And so I'm going to go back over the mathematics a little bit later, but we're going to be dealing with a formula. And a little bit later on, if the answer, after we apply this formula, if our answer ends up being greater than 1, then we're going to say that that is price elastic. If the elasticity factor ends up being less than 1, we're going to say that that product is inelastic. So that's our starting point right now. So if we look at whether goods are elastic or inelastic, what I'm really saying is if we look at a demand curve, and there's 2 demand curves here, the red on the left and the blue on the right, a flat demand curve is one that will tend to be elastic. And you see I've got some different candies there. There's a reason for that. That is an example of an elastic good, candy bars, those sorts of things. And the more steep, excuse me, the more steep a demand curve is, the more inelastic it will be. And I've got an example there of medicine, pharmaceutical drugs, not necessarily illicit drugs, but pharmaceutical drugs. Maybe life-saving drugs would be the most extreme example of inelastic demand, meaning that if you change the price of your insulin, let's say you need insulin, or your heart medication, maybe you'll die without it. Price changes aren't going to mean a whole lot to you. I mean, they will in the fact that you won't like them, but you'll still pay them. And so price changes, even large price changes, will not cause that much change in quantity demanded. So it will be reflected in this very steep demand curve here versus a flatter demand curve. If we change the price of these candy bars just by a little bit, people will change their habits and switch to some of these alternatives. If Reese's, for example, changes their price and their chocolate is even 10% higher in price than other candy bars, they will quickly find out that they are going to lose a significant number of customers. And so that demand curve would be reflected in a much flatter demand curve. So these are the factors that affect elasticity. So in addition to what you have in your notes, I want you to write basically an E and an I here, elastic, inelastic. And then under importance and budget, cheap versus expensive, E, elastic, inelastic. Luxury and necessity, elastic or inelastic. And then time period to decide, elastic or inelastic. And so these are non-mathematic factors, non-mathematic characteristics that we're going to look at so that we can figure out whether a good is elastic or inelastic. Now, some of you may never use this stuff in your life in the future, but understanding as a customer, or maybe as a small business owner someday, some of you may own your own business. Some of your parents may own a business. And they're trying to decide, shall I raise my prices? How will that affect my bottom line, my revenue? If I'm selling inelastic goods, your revenue should increase if you raise prices significantly. Let's say if your parents own a pharmacy. We just had a local pharmacy in town, the Pioneer Pharmacy, a family-owned pharmacy, a small business, just recently closed down, but Those are the types of businesses where you can get away with price changes. If you are in for example, the restaurant business, they can't get away with significant price changes. They'll lose a lot of customers, and there's a reason for that. And again, we can figure out the mathematics, and we're going to focus on that a little bit later on. But we're going to just right now, we're going to focus on these other non-mathematic characteristics that would indicate whether a good is elastic or not. So as I'd asked, you put an E and an I here, for E for elastic and I for inelastic. And so number of substitutes for the number of substitutes, if a good has a lot of substitutes. So for example, one example that I like to use here is the candy bars, or pop. Pop is another one. There's lots of different substitutes for soft drinks, flavors, styles. So under E right here, I would like you to put lots of substitutes. So something is going to be elastic, or it's going to show the characteristics of elasticity if it has lots of different substitutes. If it doesn't have a lot of substitutes, then we're going to say that that's probably an inelastic good. Price changes are not going to cause very much changes in quantity demanded. We're not going to lose as many customers by price changes. So again, candy or pop, if Coke or some other type of soft drink that you enjoy is raising its prices, then it will not enjoy losing a lot of customers. There are lots of substitutes, lemonades, teas, energy drinks. There are lots of different substitutes out there that we will simply switch away from the product that is changing their price. So under number of substitutes, the concept simply here is if there are lots of substitutes, then that product will tend to be elastic. And the mathematics will prove that. If there are not very many substitutes, then it will be inelastic. I also like to talk about, and in the video you'll see tomorrow, the lecturer will talk about pharmaceutical drugs versus over-the-counter drugs. So pharmaceutical drugs that are in patent, they're the only provider. They have like a monopoly on when a drug comes out, the drug manufacturer gets a 20-year patent to sell that exclusively. And so you're going to see extremely high prices. And you've probably heard some stories of some of the drugs that come out on the market, and they're in the hundreds of dollars to get a bottle or a prescription of some of these drugs because there are very few to no substitutes. However, you start talking about aspirin, simple over-the-counter medication you can buy at the store. There's, in addition to aspirin, there's acetaminophen, which is your Tylenol and different Tylenols and so forth. You got your ibuprofens, which are like Motrin. They'll all help a headache, a simple pain reliever. And there's lots of different substitutes. In addition to the different types of simple pain relievers, you also have the different brands. So there are many, many ways that you can substitute. If Bayer aspirin, for example, raises their price just a little bit, we'll either substitute some other brand because it's not in patent, there's no monopoly, or we'll substitute a different pain reliever, acetaminophen or ibuprofen or some of these other things out there. So the number of substitutes is our first and probably our most significant factor. Importance in your budget. Now you'll see this explained a couple different ways in the textbook or in the YouTube videos that I'm going to pop up here. But basically the question is this something that is cheap to you or expensive? Now, cheap and expensive is a relative term. Buying a car is expensive to most of us Buying a car for Kim Kardashian is like buying a candy bar for us. So a car purchase is not something that she might even give two thoughts to. Uh, Us, on the other hand, that's something that we would think about a little bit and be careful with our money and make a very well-informed choice because it tends to be more expensive. So again, I would like you to put an E and an I underneath that part of the note sheet, importance in your budget. And so if something is expensive, you're going to put that next to your E. Expensive is going to lead to elastic, more price sensitivity, meaning small changes in price could cause large changes in quantity demanded. If it is not important in your budget, if it's fairly cheap to you, then it's not something we're going to really think about. If the price changes a large percentage, 50%, let's say, but that 50% is only 50 cents, then we're not going to be as concerned with that price change. I always love using the example of table salt. If you buy table salt at the store, it comes in those containers about the size of a pop can. It's got the little girl with the umbrella and the rain suit on it, Morton salt. Families, moms will buy, a container of that Morton salt, that lasts pretty much a year or more in a family. And you can buy that container for about $1. If mom has salt on her shopping list this week and she's going to buy one of those, uh, and then she sees, oh, well, they're $1. Well, they just increased to $1.50. Mom's probably not going to say, oh, my family's not going to get any salt this year. No, she'll probably grumble about it a little bit and say, "Oh, salt just went up 50 cents," but she's still going to put it in the cart. She's still going to buy it because it's such a cheap and inexpensive part of the budget, the family budget, that price changes aren't going to significantly affect the decision on whether to buy that. And so importance in your budget is going to be a factor we're going to look at when we can use when trying to determine the non-mathematic factors that affect elasticity. Once again, importance in the budget. If it is expensive, if something is considered expensive, then we are going to be more sensitive, more price discriminatory. We're going to be careful more with our purchases. And so therefore, changes in price could affect our purchase. I just explained how a 50% change in price for salt basically isn't going to mean much to your family. But a 50% change in the price of a car is very significant. So if you are going to buy a car for $20,000, that's a kind of a cheap new car, expensive used car, but cheap new car, $20,000. And then they raise the price by 50%. 50% of $20,000 is $10,000. So your $20,000 car is now a $30,000 car. You're not going to shop at that car dealership. You're going to go somewhere else. So that would be significantly uh, affecting the quantity demanded at that car dealership if they raise their prices by 50%. That's huge. They're going to lose a lot of customers. And so importance in your budget. Luxury versus necessity. Now, this is kind of close, very similar to importance in your budget, but it's a little bit different. And so if something is not as important to you, and we hopefully know the difference between the words luxury and necessity. Luxuries are things that you don't have to have. They're luxuries. They're nice to haves. They're wants, not needs. Necessities are needs. I have to have this. For example, if you are a cigarette smoker and you're addicted to nicotine, cigarettes are not a necessity in life, but they may be a necessity to you. And so uh, cigarette manufacturers can get away with price increases, and they have, and the government has taxed cigarettes, not just cigarettes, but alcohol and some other things that are going to be inelastic goods as well. So under luxury and necessity, I'd like you again to put an E and an I. And if you could guess which one's going to be the E and which one's going to be the I, the E is going to be luxuries. So next to the letter E, I'd like you to put the word luxuries or luxury. And next to the word I, or excuse me, the letter I for inelastic, we're going to put necessity. Necessities might be pharmaceutical drugs. It might be your cigarettes. If you're an alcoholic, it might be alcohol. These are why these sorts of things are very, very expensive in our society, in our economy, because cigarette manufacturers, alcohol manufacturers, drug manufacturers, they know that their goods that they provide the public tend to be more of a necessity than a luxury. A large yacht, or going on vacation, or luxury automobiles. These are obviously going to be things that are going to be elastic in nature. Price sensitivity is going to be very elastic. Changes in price will cause significant changes in quantity demanded. So luxuries versus necessities. Now, along with that one, um, don't don't think too deep into the necessity thing. I used some extreme examples: pharmaceutical drugs, cigarettes, alcohol, but a gallon of milk might be a necessity in your household. If you've got growing young men, not even growing young men, I'm being a little sexist there, but there are plenty of moms out there that don't think twice about buying a gallon of milk. We in the United States, we're a society that drinks a lot of cow's milk, and to just about every family, it's kind of a necessity. Mom is always going to the grocery store and buying 1, 2 gallons of milk. If you have a large family of growing boys, maybe 3 gallons of milk a week. And again, price of milk. If you've ever bought milk, my wife and I were just in Walmart the other day, and I think it was as cheap as like $1.99 a gallon, but I've also seen it as high as $5.99 a gallon. It's something that's price swings a lot by not just 50%, but hundreds of percents. And but yet, milk prices, the quantity demanded doesn't drop much. Now there is a little bit of the importance of the budget factor there. Uh, it's not a huge part of a family's budget, $2 or $5 or $6 or whatever. But many families consider milk somewhat of a necessity. We have to have our milk. And if the price jumped from $2 to $5 a gallon, there's my parents' alarm clock again. We'll wait for that. So the price of milk in any given month or year has significant price swings, yet families will tend to still buy. If they always bought 3 gallons of milk, they'll probably still buy 3 gallons of milk. In the long run, they may cut that down a little bit, that consumption down a little bit, but for the most part, don't take the whole necessity, meaning that you die without it. Food, clothing, and shelter I talked about earlier in the year as being needs versus wants. Necessity versus luxury is a little bit different concept. It's a very close concept, but a little bit different. And then the last one here is time period to decide. And when we're looking at time period to decide, this one's kind of simple. It's do we have a short window or do we have a long window? Buying a car is a perfect example. When you buy a car, most families don't decide, hey, honey, let's buy a car. Okay. And then 2 hours later, they have a car. Usually people price shop, they look online, maybe they stop at a dealership, take a car for a test drive. And for some families, the process of buying a car might take several weeks. So that's going to lead to elastic characteristics of elastic goods. if you take a long period time to, if you take a long time to decide on a purchase, then it's going to tend to be elastic. You take a short amount of time. I'm thinking things like right at the checkout counter of the grocery store, they put a lot of goods there and they jack up the prices a little bit. And you're in line, you don't have a whole lot of time to think about it. And oh, you grab that candy bar. All right. Or grab whatever. The best example I like to give is you go to the movies and you buy a ticket. Now you've got about 10 minutes before the movie starts, very short time period to decide that purchase. And that purchase is going to be popcorn and pop, and very price inelastic with a short time period to decide. Uh, and that's why popcorn is so expensive at the movie theater. The markup on popcorn at the movie theater, an entire bag of popcorn at the store is about $2. Yet they're selling fractions of that bag in a tub of popcorn for $8 to $10 a tub. That's crazy. Huge markups. Why? Well, there's a lot of reasons. One, there aren't very many substitutes unless you sneak in your popcorn. It's not a huge, it's not a big important part of your budget. It's not $100 purchase. uh, Necessity or luxury. Some people are almost to the point. I kind of am. Having popcorn at the movie theater is kind of a necessity for me. It's very hard for me to. It's like a cigarette smoker wanting a cigarette. If I go into a movie theater and I smell that popcorn, it almost isn't a luxury. It's almost a necessity for me. And then I got that very small window to make a decision on that purchase. So a small time period to decide. So let's go ahead and grab the other handout. This is the handout I want you to grab right now. It looks like this page 2. Flip it to the second page. It's got break even practice problems. We're going to do break even later on this week. But we're going to go to elasticity. And now there's some mathematics here. There's some numbers here. But all we're going to do right now for today's lesson is, excuse me, I'm going to do the first two with you, and we're not going to do the math. We're going to do the math later. So this is something we're going to fill in, and we are going to do this together. And we're just going to look at the y. And the y that you're going to put here, there might be multiple y's, or one might jump out at you, but you're going to put one of these factors that I just went over. These factors right here. So one of these, like lots of substitutes or few substitutes, importance in your budget, cheap or expensive, luxury or necessity, long period to decide or short period to decide. Those are going to be your answers to the whys here. Okay, so we're just going to do the first two together, and then I'm going to have you guys do the rest, 3, 4, and 5 on your own. Then we're going to check to see if we were right in our next lecture with doing the mathematics. That may even be when I return next week on Monday, but we're going to do that in our next lecture. So we're not going to deal with this math, these numbers right now. So baseball ticket. You're going to go to a baseball game. Let's call this a professional baseball game. What do we think that is? Are we going to mark elastic or are we going to mark inelastic? Which box are we going to check here? All right, so we're going to probably check elastic. Baseball tickets will tend to be elastic. For what reason? Well, we could put luxury here. It's not a necessity to go to a baseball game, so luxury. You could put expensive. Prices of baseball tickets, a professional baseball game, can get upwards of hundreds of dollars. So you could put either one of those answers, might be the best answer there on why baseball tickets would be elastic. Luxury or expensive. I could even accept long time period to decide. Some people, when they plan a vacation or a trip with the family, it's a decision that takes more than just 10 seconds on whether they're going to go to a ball game. So the the first answer in this why, you're going to probably write one of those things. I'll accept all of those answers. Luxury, expensive, or long time period to decide on that decision. Number two, box of pencils. Now you'll notice here I've got a box of pencils at a relatively inexpensive price, $2, $2.75, $3 for a box of pencils. And so are we going to guess that boxes of pencils are elastic or inelastic? We're going to have to figure out the math behind this one. This one's kind of close. But if we look at our different examples, are there very many substitutes for pencils? Yeah, there's a few, pens and so forth. But if you need an erasable pencil, yeah, that one's probably not going to be. Importance or budget? Cheap. Yes, that's going to lead to inelastic. This might be our answer right here. Luxury or necessity? I would not say pencils are a luxury item. People who need a pencil need a pencil. And so that's probably going to be our best answer, is either importance in the budget or a necessity. You could write either one of those right there. So what I'd like you to do now is 3, 4, and 5, sailboat, baby food, and heart medication. I'd like you to fill in those last 3. Now, this should take you literally 60 seconds. If you were following along and understanding, filling in those 3 should not take you. You might already have it done. So I would like you to go ahead and fill that out. And that's going to be it for today. You're going to, if there's time left in class, watch CNN 10 to finish out the hour. But tomorrow, you're going to watch a couple videos asynchronously that are going to kind of reinforce everything I've just said. And that other handout, that third handout, you'll be pulling out as well. Now, notice the slideshow. We still have to deal with some issues. The break-even analysis. We're going to deal with that probably early next week. So hold on to that. And then the other handout as well, we're going to do some break-even problems here, some story problems. You don't necessarily know what break-even means yet, but that's something that we're going to deal with on the supply side. So elasticity is more of a demand side issue, and break even is more of a supply side issue. So hey, I can't wait to be back at Roscommon, and I miss you guys, and we'll talk to you later. So see you later.